In this tutorial, I'm going to be using PHP and jQuery to return a value from a database without having to refresh the page. So basically what I'm going to do here is we're typing in a name. So I'm going to type Alex, and inside our database you can see I'm using PHP MyAdmin as an interface to my database. I've got a database just simply called database and a table called people. Now inside this table called people, I've got one record, name being Alex and age being 20. So what we want to do is inside this form we want to match this name to this value, and we want to return this value here, which is my age. So let's test this out. I'm going to click get, and you can see that it's returned Alex's age is 20. Now if I was to enter nothing, we're returned with please enter a name, and if we enter a name that isn't found, name not found. So you can see this is an easy way to display error messages, easy way to display data from a database without actually having to refresh the page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video and we're going to return to a blank file which we're going to start writing. Okay, so I'm into my text editor context. What we're going to be dealing with is two files. We've got index.php, which is the one that you saw where I was typing in my name, and we've got data.php, which is going to handle our data. We're going to extract our data from our database. So the first thing we need to do, the most important thing we need to do, is download and run jQuery. Now this is downloadable as a JavaScript file, so basically all we need to do is include this in our script. So if I just open up my web browser and come on over to jQuery.com, you can see here there's a quick download link to jQuery. Now when this is clicked, you'll get a long file of shortened functions and whatever else is inside the jQuery file. You can see it's a JS file as well. Now what I've done is I've actually created it as a single file just called jQuery.js. So if we come here, jQuery.js, you can see that I've included this in the folder that I'm working with. So it's the same folder that my index file and my data.php file are both in. So once you've downloaded that, and put it in the same directory, call it whatever you like, and then what we can do is start including it inside our document, and then it will be ready to use. So the first thing we're going to do inside our index.php is set up our basic HTML tags. So I'm setting up HTML tags to enclose everything in. I'm setting up head tags, and then I'm setting up body tags. Now the head tags completely significant in what we're doing, as we're going to be including JavaScript files, and we're going to be writing some JavaScript code as well as some CSS later to format the area that the age will be displayed in. So what we need to start doing is script type equals, and then we can end that off. So this is usually where you'd write your content just in here, but what we're going to be doing is just including jQuery as a file. So text/JavaScript, as you would do, and then instead of writing code inside here, we're going to write it inside here, and we're going to write source equals jQuery.js. Okay, so now what that's done is it's included this JavaScript file into our script, and we can start using it from that external point of view. So we're also going to open up another set of script tags, and this is going to be text JavaScript as well. So we're writing JavaScript inside here as well. But that's going to come later when we're actually dealing with jQuery and putting over some post data from our form. Now obviously inside our body tags we're going to have to create our form, and to do this I'm going to create a basic form with a name. So instead of action that I've just written, we're going to say form name equals form. Now this is all we need to process the form, as we're going to be working with JavaScript functions, and inside that function we're going to then send the data from the form and have it processed in our data.php file here. So the first thing I want to do is create an input type, or an input field, and this is going to be type of text. and the name of this is simply going to be name, because that's what we're entering into the text area, or the text field, sorry. And also we're going to create a button. Now we're not creating a submit button like we would usually do this, we're creating a button. And the reason for this is we're not actually submitting the form, we're just using this form as a sort of like an area that we're entering data into our fields, but then we're going to submit it. We're going to transfer the data into our data.php and then have that processed by jQuery. So the value of this, I'm just going to say get age, or get. Okay, now the important thing is the on click, and here we're going to enter a function name that we'll later create, and this is going to be the function get. So we can enter this here now. We haven't created the function yet. We're going to do that later up here in inside our script. Now the next thing we want to do is create our div area that we're going to display our result in. So the result will be displayed here. So if I was to come back into here and refresh this page, you can see that we've got our form, and you can see we've got our result here. And this is where we're going to obviously type the name and then click get. You see, notice nothing happens, and our result is going to be displayed here. So this div will always exist, it just won't be shown until we have clicked get. The data will pass and then will be displayed with the result here. So if we come back to context, I'm not going to write anything in here just yet. I'm going to give this name this div an ID, and the ID is going to be called age. So we can control this div with this variable name if you like. It's just a reference to this div that allows us to show it, hide it from jQuery. So I'm going to enclose the form in paragraph tag. This is just to keep everything aligned, because we're going to be using CSS a bit later to format how we've displayed this form, so it all looks nice and neat and tidy. So our form is pretty much done. Let's just preview it again to make sure everything's okay. You can see that there's nothing displayed here, but the div does actually exist around this area here, and obviously this is to type our name in later. So we're going to come back and we're going to start creating this function called get that we've specified down here. So this is a JavaScript function that we're going to be creating. So the syntax is going to be function get. We're going to two brackets there. We're not feeding any information into this function, we're just using it as a handler. So when we click this button here, we can process this function, and jQuery inside will do the work for us. Now jQuery is incredibly easy to use. It looks complicated to start with, but once you get the hang of it, you'll actually realize that it's a lot easier way of doing things. It looks good, it's fast, and it has many useful functions, pretty functions. We've got fade in functions to do things. So this code looks a lot more complicated than the PHP, but in fact what we're doing is we're creating something that's a lot easier, and it's going to benefit us in the long run. So I'm going to change the highlighting type to JavaScript just so it looks better, so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going to start off with a $sign. You'd usually see this within, say, PHP or something, but this is typical of jQuery, and this is just how the syntax works. So we're going to be posting data. So notice we didn't use a method here. We didn't say method equals post like we would usually write, but instead we're going to specify this up here. So we're going to say $.post, and then inside this we're going to write data.php, and this is going to transfer our post data, the post data that we specify. It won't take post data from this form, we have to specify it individually, and it's going to process it by data.php, our file up here, which is at the moment blank. So the next thing we want to do is a comma after this, and inside curly braces we're going to specify now the names that we want to, or the variable names that we want to pass to data.php. So this is going to be name. Remember we had this here. This bears no significance to this here, but this is the name that we're going to interpret inside data.php, and this is the value that we're going to pass to it. So what we're going to do now is form form.name.value. Now let me explain this just a bit. Form is the name of our form, which we've written in here. This is very important. Whatever you change this to, this is going to be the access for it. Name here is the name, like I said, of this here. So remember, this here and this here are totally different. This is what we're going to interpret inside PHP. What we do is we usually write name equals $_post name. So basically this is equivalent to this, or this is how they're passed. So name is going to be this here, and name here is the value of what you have typed into this form. So I've for some reason called them the same thing. Probably a better idea to call them something different so you can distinguish between them. However, it will still work the same. So we've ended this curly brace here, and what we now need to do is another comma, and I'm going to come down a couple of lines, and I'm going to say, let's just get this aligned properly. Okay, so function output. Now this here is going to be our output from our data.php file that we can then display inside this div here. So we're going to use a function to display it inside the div. So this is the output, and then what we're doing is more sets of curly braces. Let's just tidy this up a bit, and a semicolon on the end of the line here. And then inside this function here, what we're going to do is we're going to address our div and give our div some things to do. So basically we need a $, and then what we're doing is we're putting the name of the div inside here, and we address this with a hash and then age. So age is the name of our div, so here. Now basically what this function is doing is it's taking the output and then it's dealing with the output here. So upon output of our data.php, we're doing something inside here. So it's the same as this here, but this is automatic after we've posted our data. So then what we want to say is .html output. So remember, this here is the same as this here. The output here we get from data.php, and then HTML is basically going to change the contents of the div to our output. So .html is changing the contents of this div, which is here, to the output that we receive. And then what we're going to do is .show, and then to brackets, and then we use a semicolon to terminate that line. Okay, so this is basically our function in JavaScript done, and we've created our post data submission inside jQuery. So let's just run the page. You'll notice that there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. We can still type in Alex, click get, and well, I would say nothing has happened, but what's actually happened is it's echoed the output of our data.php file. Now at the moment this isn't addressed as prepared, if you like, for an HTML for a PHP document. But if we were to say PHP tags, so open up some standard PHP tags, and we're going to echo out this is a test. Now basically what I said is we're posting data to data.php, and we're posting this data. We're then outputting here into this age div here. So whatever's inside this data.php file, whatever's going to be output, will be shown in the div. So now if we click get, you can see it says this is a test. So we've not processed anything inside data.php, but what we have done is we are now taking the contents of the data.php file and we're putting it in here. Okay, so obviously this is all well and good. We're displaying the contents of data.php, but we actually need to process this first of all. So we're going to just do pretty standard method of extracting code from our database based on a variable that has been input. So remember, we've got name here, which is going to be equal to a name. So name equals post name. Now what I can do, just for an example, is echo out name, and then if we come into here, we're going to type in a value here, we're going to click get, it's going to pass the form name and the value of the name input field inside the name form. We're going to process it as name. This is inside data.php. We're then going to pick this up here and we're going to echo it out, and this here will be displayed because we're echoing out inside the div here. Okay, so let's refresh, and I'm going to type in Alex and click get. So we're displaying whatever we type inside here. Okay, so that's just showing you without refreshing we're processing at least something inside this data.php file. Now all we really need to do is actually make it useful. So the first thing we want to do up here is we're going to connect to our database. So I'm running localhost, username of root, and no password exists for me. Then what we're doing is we need to get the variable name, which we have already done. Okay, so what we're going to do is, as we're taking data from this form and we're putting it directly into a query, we will be in a minute, we need to protect this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say MySQL real escape string, and this will somewhat prevent SQL injection. So this is quite an important function when you're dealing with data into a query directly from your database. So now we need to set up the query, and this is going to be age equals MySQL query, so a new query function, and this is obviously eventually going to hold the age of myself, since we only have one record inside here. Let's go. Okay, so as silly as I am, I forgot to actually create the database first. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create this database. So create a new database is database. I'm going to click create. And obviously this is going to change depending on your requirements of your database and what data that you need to extract. But I'm going to create my new table people, and this is going to have 3 fields. Okay, so the first field is going to be ID, which for every user is going to make it unique. We're going to add an auto increment, so we're going to increment by 1 for each record that's added. The name here, I'm going to choose varchar, and it's going to be 25, so 25 characters in length. And the age is just going to be an integer because ages tend to be integers. I'm going to go down and we're going to save this. Okay, so we've got our field set up. Now we're just going to insert some data. So my name is Alex, 20 years old, so that's all the data we need. Click go, and we're going to click browse, and you can see that we've got data in here, which is name and age. So name is going to be the name of the user that is present in this field here, and then we're going to extract this age from it and then display it here. So the query is going to be select age from, now we're going to use our database name, so this is going to be database, and then it's going to be dot and our table name, so database.people, so database name here and people here. You can up here use the MySQL select db function, but I'm just going to be using database.people for a change. So select age from database.people where name equals name. So this is the name of the field inside the database, and this is the name of what we want to select. So we're specifically selecting someone's name, which we've grabbed here from our form. Okay, so there's the name variable. this is our query that we've put into a variable called age. Now what I'm going to do is create a another variable called age num rows, and this is going to be MySQL num rows of age. So basically all this is going to do is it's going to return the amount of data that has been found. So what we can do is then echo this out to test it. Oh no, age num rows. Okay, so back into here, I'm going to type Alex and click get. And it says it's found one record, which is true because we have one record where the name equals Alex. And now I'm going to type in Kyle, click get, and this has changed to 0 because there's no records in our database with the name Kyle. So as long as it equals 1, we know that the name exists. And this is why I've taken you through displaying the number of rows, because basically we need to find out whether the name exists or not. So the first thing we're going to do is actually create a check that checks if a name has been entered or not. So we're going to say if name equals null, so if it equals nothing at all, then we're going to echo out please enter a name. Else, so otherwise, and we're going to open up some curly brackets, we're going to echo you entered a name. So this is purely for this line is pure. Oh, sorry, this line here is purely for testing purposes. What we're going to do now is come back into our code, into our page. Sorry, I'm going to type in Alex. I'm going to click get, and it says you entered a name. Then I'm going to type Kyle, click get, and it stated you entered a name. If I don't enter a name, it says please enter a name. So we've got this check inside our data.php, which is echoing out this data or this data, and then obviously inside our div down here it's displaying this, simply because of this functionality here, because we're outputting the HTML from this file. So we obviously don't want to tell the user that they have entered a name that they know they have. What we need to do now is continue our checks, and like I said before, we're going to check if the name actually exists. So now what we're going to do is say if age num rows equals 0. So we're using equals to say if it's equal to 0, if the row count is equal to 0, then we're going to say name does not exist. And then else, and more curly brackets to continue if we actually have found a name, i.e. the number of rows is 1. Okay, so we can test this out. We can say name found. So this again is purely for testing purposes. This isn't. This is a check to see if the name has been found or not. If it does equal if the row count does equal 0, the name doesn't exist. Otherwise, the name does exist. So back into our browser, I'm going to type in Alex, click get, name found. I'm going to type Kyle. Now remember, our name is not going to be found because it doesn't exist. And I'm going to click get, and it says name does not exist. So we're testing each stage of the checks to check that they are working properly, and that our code is functioning properly. Okay, so the next thing to do is actually to grab the age of the user, because the user has entered a name, and now inside this else block here, the name does exist. So now we need to grab the age. So this is going to be, in fact, actually we've already grabbed the age from the database, and my placement of this was actually initially wrong. So what we're doing is we're coming straight into this and we're selecting an age without having these checks. So I'm going to cut this data here, tidy that up a bit. In fact, no, sorry, I was correct to do that, because obviously without this query here, we wouldn't have this here, and then we wouldn't have this check here. So what we can actually do is we can take this, cut this, and paste it inside this else statement here, or this else block here, sorry. Okay, so the reason for this is we're checking for the name. If it doesn't exist, we're not doing anything. We don't need to take the data into account. If a name has been entered, or if some data has been entered, then we can continue with our query. Then we can continue with checking the amount of rows, and then we can perform this check here to see if it exists or not. And then otherwise, we're simply going to echo out, names age is age. Now, as this stands, it's not going to work. This query has not returned us any data, it's just performed the query. Now, using functions like MySQL numRows, we can extract data from our query that we've performed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the same variable age. So with setting this, I'm overwriting this initial variable. But what I am actually doing is still taking the result from this query. So age equals MySQL result. So we're using the MySQL result function to grab a result for us. And this is going to be age, and then we're going to use a 0 there. Okay, so let's go and test this. It should actually at the moment echo out name, which has been provided here, and then it should take the result here, pop it into the age variable, and then echo it out there. So back to here. Let's just refresh the page. I'm going to type Kyle just to double check, name does not exist. Alex, get. Alex's age is 20. So we have at the moment successfully grabbed the age from the database, and we've displayed it without having to refresh the page. So now that our functionality is working and everything works, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some CSS to my index.php file to format this div. What I basically want to do is just bring it up a bit. I want to bring it up so it's more or less underneath it. So to do this, I'm going to open up a... Now really your style sheet should be external, but because I have a limited amount of, not time, but a limited amount of fiddling around that I can do with this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple. So style type equals, I'm going to just change this back to PHP anyway. Style type equals text /CSS, and then we end our style tag. Now to style a div, we're going to use the same initiation. It's going to be a hash. So we've called our div age, and then over we're going to create some curly braces. And then inside this, what we're going to do is we're going to type display none. Now the reason I'm doing this is because anything that we have inside our div to start with, we don't want to display. What you could do is you could say please, sorry, not please, you could say age will appear here, and then if we comment this out and come into here, age will appear here, and then I can type Alex and click get, and my name change, the value of this div changes to Alex's age is 20. But what I actually want to do is not display it at all. And this also helps with if you're using the fade in function or the toggle function within jQuery, and I'll show you that in just a bit. So display none. I'm going to set the line height to 0 pixels, and the font size I'm going to change to 20 pixels. So now we can see that immediately we've got a change. Type in Alex, click get. You can see that it's appeared almost underneath it, and the font size is bigger. So you can fiddle around with these. Obviously divs are interchangeable with styles in CSS, so you can change them in any way you like. And now what I can just show to you is how we can change this show part here to fade in. So back to here, refresh. Now bear in mind, all I've changed is show to fade in. What I'm going to do now is set a speed. So I'm going to say 1000 milliseconds, so that's a second. Again, refresh. I'm going to click Alex, or type Alex, click get, and you can see that that nicely fades in. If we just type, say, please enter a name, you can see that it didn't fade out then fade in. So we've typed Alex, click get, Alex's age is 20. Now it stopped fading in. Now the reason for this is simply that we are not hiding the div once we want to re-fade in. So if I was to again type Alex and click get, you can see it fades in. Kyle, name does not exist. Let's just refresh this. Okay, so again, Alex, get, Alex's age is 20, Kyle, name does not exist. So basically what's happening is it's not fading in with each try. Again, if I wasn't to type anything, please enter a name. So what we want it to do is fade in every time. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to come down here, and just above, before we post our data, we want to re-hide the div. We want to hide the div again for it then to fade back in. So if we were to say hide the div here, then we would post data again, we would receive the output and fade in again. So it's re-hidden for it to then fade back in. And to do this, we're just going to use exactly the same format. Inside here we're going to say age, and then we're going to say dot hide. What we could say is dot fade out, but for now I think the best effect is to say have it hide instantly and then re-fade in. So let's give this a try. Let's refresh the page. I'm going to type Alex, fades in. I'm going to type Kyle, name does not exist. I'm going to type nothing, please enter a name. So basically what we've done is we've created a piece of code that refreshes, well, without refreshing, sorry, grabs data from a database. Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to hearing your comments about this technique. So thank you very much for watching, and for now, bye bye.